webinar. The project is called Our Community United, and today's webinar is Funding for Self-Advocacy. Go ahead, Juliana. We would like you to know that Self-Advocates Becoming Empowered, Our Community United webinar is from a grant from the Administration on Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. Sometimes they're called AIDD. The grant supports self-advocacy groups and organizations to become stronger. We hope this webinar will be one of the tools that you can do to help your group.
All right, Katie, you're next.
Yeah.
You're up.
Okay. 1 second. The purpose of today's webinar is to provide an activity to increase your members' abilities to help with outreach and fundraising. Also to increase your understanding of the different kinds of funding and fundraising. How to work with your organization to make funding and fundraising plans. Some strategies we will be discussing in today's webinar is strategies for increasing membership to increase fundraising power, strategies for deciding what kinds of funding will work best for your organization, and strategies for writing a fundraising plan.
All right, we now have George.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I don't know if I can control this thing. All right. All right. Oh, we're doing elevator speech first.
Yes.
Okay. So whenever you're going to do funding, you have to talk about your organization. And oftentimes, you know, we have a lot to say because there's a lot of things that we think are important. But whenever you're talking to somebody new, and especially if you're talking to somebody that might want to fund what you do, they don't have a lot of time, and you don't want to be boring, and you don't want to, you know, turn them away from your organization. So you have to do what we call an elevator speech. Now think about it. We call it an elevator speech because think about whenever you're in an elevator. You're probably in an elevator for what, maybe 1 and maybe 2 minutes at most, depending on how far you're going. So think about that time period that you're in an elevator as the amount of time that you have to tell people about your organization. This is where you make your case, where you tell them who you are. So an elevator speech explains your organization's activities, and the funding means you must work. Excuse me?
She said if she completes this, the thing is on until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, she's got
So, anybody have a question?
Please make sure that your phones are muted during the speaker's time. We have someone making an appointment in the background. Please mute your phone if possible. Thank you.
Anyway, back to what I was saying. Your elevator speech explains your organization's activities and funding needs to possible donors. So what that means is, you know, it's a quick, who are you, what you guys stand for. You know, it tells donors what you are, what you do, what you're trying to do, and why you're trying to do that. So it's a quick synopsis of what your organization does. It's short and to the point, and if you're writing one, because oftentimes you might want to write a letter for donors, they're no longer than a page. Short and simple. You tell people who you are, your mission, your values, maybe your goals and objectives, and why you're trying to do this. And if people believe in what you do and they like what you do, then they'll buy into it. And by buying into it is they might provide funding. And so elevator speeches are very key to being able to get some funding.
All right, George, fundraising strategies.
All right, so now that we've talked about elevator speeches, is that now we have to think about strategies. Now, there's all sorts of things that people can do for fundraising. For instance, there's mail soliciting. That's where you send out a bunch of, maybe it'll be a postcard or a letter or something about your organization, and you get a massive mailing list and you mail it all out there. Or you can call people by phone, and sometimes, I don't know if you've ever received a phone call from an organization, I know I have, where they tell me about their organization and their needs for financial assistance or for some money. There's door-to-door. People can go walking door-to-door, talking about organizations, or talking about their organization. And then finally, there's stuff like corporate sponsorships. For instance, United Way. United Way gets a lot of money from the NFL, and so that's one way that nonprofit organization gets money. The thing is that depending on the type of strategy that you use, it takes money. Ever heard that expression? It takes money to make money. Well, some things are more expensive to do than others, and so not only that, it also takes manpower, or volunteers, the number of members in your organization. So you gotta think about what strategies can you do, can you use, depending on what your resources are in your organization and how much money you need. So the first thing you have to take into consideration is the amount of money needed to be raised. How much money does it take to run your organization? Are you talking about day-to-day activities? Do you meet monthly? How much does it cost to run your meetings, to have your organization? What are your bills? What are your expenses? Do you have to pay an executive director or an advisor? Do you have to pay rent for a room, telephone, internet access, different things like that? How much money do you need? Or do you just need money for a one-time event? Are you putting on a dance? Are you going on a trip together to a conference? Are you trying to put on your own conference? So you always have to have a goal of money that you need so that you can plan accordingly. Second is, how much money do you have for this fundraising activity? If you're going to do a mailing list, or send out a bunch of postcards, well, postcards cost money. Stamps cost money. How much money do you have to be able to do this fundraising? If you're going to have a bake sale, how much money do you have to buy ingredients? Always be aware of how much money do you have for fundraising. And the third thing that you have to take into consideration for fundraising are the skills and resources available to the organization. Now, let's say you want to do door-to-door, going door-to-door in your community or your neighborhood. How many people do you have that are able to do this? If it's one person, well, that can be very difficult because it takes a lot of walking to get a lot of people. And so what are the resources out there? What are the skills available? Skills, again, if you're baking, do you know how to bake? And so if you take these three things into consideration, How much money do you need to raise? How much money do you have for fundraising activities? And what are you good at? That's more important. I think that's the most important thing is, what are you good at? If you're good at, putting on talent shows, then go with that. Charge an event. If you're not good at baking, maybe stay away from that. So 3 things that you really should take into consideration when discussing fundraising. All right, next.
That's it. Okay, Eric, you're next.
Does anybody have any questions?
We'll do questions afterwards, George.
All right.
Okay, thanks, y'all. So what I'm here to talk about is on the funding that we know about. Foundations, faith-based organizations, grant, federal, state, and local. Foundation. I've started several years ago my own nonprofit to raise money for our research. And I selected somebody to help me get started before I started my own nonprofit. I went with what they call the Arkansas Community Foundation. Does anybody know about the Arkansas Community Foundation? They're a great resource to help you start raising funds. But yeah, that's really not what we need to hear. Like a foundation, like the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. They're a great foundation that I've seen that provides a lot of money for a lot of organizations. We have faith-based organizations, which I'm not too familiar with them. Grants, like federal, state, and local. Our federal government gives a lot of money, a lot of grants. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Foundation Center is a great place to look for grants. Is that correct?
It could be one, yeah.
It's a resource center. It's a resource center on how to put them together. They write articles about what's going on with foundations and other places. During the tough economies, they'll have some articles in there. But mostly people use it as a way to learn about grants, how to put them together, and what you need to have for your organization. Do you have anything else to add, Juliana?
For foundations, no, but you have some thoughts on faith-based organizations, right, Teresa?
Well, faith-based organizations, there are all kinds of organizations that are based out of, for example, the Catholic Charities or the different religions or groups that they follow. The Mormon faith has quite a bit of monies that they give. They also volunteer a lot, so they're a great example of how volunteerism is set up. So you have different things that you can learn from faith-based organizations. There are the Baptist Charities. So it is good to check in with your church or faith-based organization to see if they do offer grants or have a foundation so that you can connect to them. They love to give to the people who participate. So it's really easy for people to make that connection because you are the ones that are giving, and what they do is what you give, they turn around and help a lot of people, not just your organization, but they help a lot of other community organizations like nonprofits.
One other thing I found too, that some self-advocacy organizations, I guess, has to have someone to manage their grant for them. but that also can also lead into other things. But the organization that manages their grant will also help provide computers and some funding. Just for for instance, Arkansas People First. I think one of the largest universities in the country might manage our grant. We don't know that for sure, but we have but we're working with them. Which is university, Harding University, I'm very familiar with, and their administration. Which I think that's going maybe into other things. That's going maybe into some other financial opportunities for Arkansas People First. Just by letting this university, if they decide to manage their grant, not only will we be building financial, but we'll be building a strong relationship that will be good for us in the community. So there are other opportunities out there. Just you may run a grant with somebody that died, but then that will, but I'm sorry, pardon. I must apologize. My voice might gone today. My sinuses and allergies were just absolutely killing me.
Well,
I apologize for my voice.
it's okay, Eric.
But writing grants with other, like I say, this university in particular manage our grant. I can see that leading into other things. So just because you write a grant somewhere, that leads into other things. And that's really not my strong suit. My strong suit is hosting events personally.
All right, switch up to the next slide. Back to you, Eric.
Okay.
Small events, large events.
Do what? Kinds of money for self-advocacy? Is that... I'm having some technical problems here. I'm having trouble pulling my slides up.
We're on the this or that for funding.
Do what?
This or that of funding, fundraising.
Okay, this is okay. One of my big fundraisers. I haven't hosted it in a while, but the golf tournament. Which a golf tournament, a special event leads into several different things. But yet, one thing to remember about special events is not so much how much money you raise, but it's exposing your organization. Your organization gets exposed majorly because you get some PSAs, you get some radio time, newspaper time, the people that come out to your event. And that's where salesmanship is very important, to sell your event and sell what you do. And I think Trish and I were talking about earlier cause, this kind of jumps the ship a little bit, but I just thought about this. But also your organization having a major cause can also bring exposure and possibly funding. Just like in Arkansas, it's been researched as we speak now that a couple that had abandoned women that have disabilities cannot adopt a child in Arkansas. So that's the cause Arkansas People First we want to get behind, and that will give us a lot of exposure. I think taking on a major cause like this.
Juliana, go to the next slide, I think. So Eric, the slide that we're on right now is the newest kinds of money.
Yes.
And having self-advocates get paid. You want to talk about MOU?
Yes. Yeah. We have People First. We contracted, I guess, a memorandum of understanding with our Developmental Disability Service in Arkansas. For our members, we train providers, and the providers pays us to do this, which is a great way once again for us to get our organization message out there, training providers, but self-advocates getting paid. And we do, a provider agency. Our training, the training we do is reach your own greatness, and we get paid to do that. And we have and then we have an understanding with our developmental disability service. And obviously they know the training we do. We have a lot of great feedback from providers and from especially the commissioner at DVS, who we have the understanding with. Making those people happy. Making those people happy is so very important. Because without their blessing and understanding, we just disappear.
So you have an MOU, that's a memorandum of understanding, and that was where you were talking about the groups just working together for common goals, and it tells who's going to do what and what the responsibilities are for that project.
Right.
Which one is stronger, the MOU or the contract?
I think the MOU, because sometimes the contract can be pretty tricky because something, one party or the other might not fulfill their contract, and I think, I could be wrong, but I think the MOU is pretty strong.
Yeah, they're actually both pretty strong. The contract is an agreement that tells exactly what you're going to get paid for. Right. So that one is going to help the self-advocates know what they're promising to do, and if they don't do it, they could be breaking the contract. So, but mostly what we're talking about is self-advocates getting paid for what they know how to do. We're great trainers, we're great speakers, so those are the things that we want people to start really getting paid for, and the memorandum and the contracts are really important to help you figure out the different relationships you have with the organizations to help you get paid.
Mm-hmm.
You ready for the next slide?
Okay, the individuals give the both.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
The what?
Individuals that give the most.
Right. Of course, membership dues. Every one of our chapters in Arkansas pays the annual due. Of course, we have professional membership dues, and even if we have a chapter dues, we have individual dues. If you don't belong to a chapter, but and you are an individual with a disability, you want to become a member, then you then we have dues for that. We have a donations. We haven't really got a lot of donations in our contribution. We really see a little bit, a few of those. Mm, but I see something here on the slide, leaving a bequest in your will to your self-advocacy group. A bequest is, can be complicated sometimes because there could be land or a home or something involved. And I guess a great example is because I had an aunt and uncle that were pretty well off, and they didn't have a will. And they had donated to our research fund. They had given contributions. Of course, a good fundraiser is going to be sitting down with them, talking to them about a will, or leaving their money to my organization and bequest. Is that?
And Eric, this is where we did talk with you and I about supporting the cause, and a lot of people will give you money for supporting the cause, like you were talking about earlier. And so we want to make sure that George talked about having a reason for people to give, so that it's clear what they're supporting. That helps people really connect to your group. And so if you have a cause that you're working on, whether it be, like Eric talked about, adoption, or whether it's the sub-minimum wage or the marriage penalty or whatever your cause is, if you need money to help have that happen, it really helps to be prepared to talk about those things, because people will support a cause that they believe in. It makes it easier for them to understand what the kind of advocacy the group is doing. So you talked about that with me this morning, Eric. Do you have anything else to add to that?
Right. Well, for instance, our cause here right now that I'm pretty fired up about individuals with disabilities cannot adopt, cannot adopt a child. Well, if that goes to court, that costs money. But then hopefully somebody will step forward and say, here, we believe in what y'all are doing here. Here, we want to help with the financial expense of what this project, of what this cause will cost, whether it be attorney fees or court fees or whatever.
Okay, Juliana, I think we can go to the next slide.
All right.
Hello?
Yes.
Can I add something really quick to that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go back one, Juliana, so that...
All right.
Okay.
And I just want to say something on, for instance, you talked about wills and then contributions. And I think it's really important to stress the idea that you should build a relationship with the people that donate, and it should be more than just thanking them, more than just saying, thank you for your donation, and then just that. Just keep them updated, let them know what their money's going towards. If you use the money for something, like for instance, you're putting on a conference, let them know what the conference did, how many people showed up or how many people participated, what were some of the what were some of the, you know, the goals that were achieved. And that way people feel like their money went to something that's good and that they agreed to, and they saw that it made a difference. And then you can always go back to them and say, well, if you really like that, we're doing it again, or our organization's expanding. And so once you build that relationship, it can continue for, you know, several more donations, and, you know, ultimately, even you could have people, you know, leave money after they're no longer here with us. And so building that relationship is very important.
May I throw something in here?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. As I can build a relationship here, so important. Just like my sponsors of my golf tournament, you know, they get real nice matter after the tournament, but every now and then I just drop in and visit with them, say hello, you know, keep thanking them, let them know what's going on, giving them updates and so forth. So what George said is so right. You know, build that relationship. And then my sponsors keep coming back, and what really helps me too, sometimes my sponsors pick up money. You know, they pick up business from my golf tournament because they bought a sponsorship, and other people see them and 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 possibly do business with them throughout the year. So that's a little added incentive there. If I can pick up business from my golf tournament, then everybody wins. That's all I have.
All right. Very good, Eric. We'll go ahead and move on to the next slide.
Okay, what we can do about this, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Am I still presenting?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes, Eric.
Okay, well, it says, what can we do about this? Said no one talked to me about the group. Always take that opportunity. Wherever I'm at, if I'm in Walmart and I see somebody that, you know, that I make a attempt to introduce myself and invite them to our meeting and talk about the group. That's where the elevator speech comes in with. Oh, which I'm not real good at that. I'm practicing it. When I did give money, I didn't receive a personal thank you. Once again, those thank yous are so important because it lets them know that you care about them and you appreciate the money. And or not only sometimes people don't give you money, but they give them time for your event. And that means just as much as money sometimes because if they give their time, that means they care about your organization, which could lead into money. Yeah. Also, it's so really important when somebody asks a member, what do you do to help people? You know, and that's what self-advocacy is about, helping people. Not only helping ourselves to get what we need, but also about helping others to get what they need. So we must always be prepared to tell people what our group is doing to help people in the community.
And this is, Teresa, I think that one of the things that you can do with this slide is ask the group, what can we do about this? And this is to help us remember that we need our elevator speeches ready all the time. Because if you're at a information table or booth and somebody says, what does your group do? Or, you know, they just hand you a brochure and you just that person keeps walking, you just lost an opportunity to tell them what the group is all about and maybe lose a potential supporter or funder. And so it's really important to have lots and lots of practice of your elevator speech when you're with your group or with friends. Say, can I try this out on you? I'm going to be doing an information table, and I need to make sure that I tell them all the key things about our group. So you can practice with other people. And the second one of the other things that came to mind when Eric was speaking was that sometimes you'll give money, and a couple of weeks later you'll get a letter that says, thank you for your contribution. Here's the tax ID letter that you can put with your taxes. But it really doesn't say what you did, how you supported their group. Like George was saying, they really want to know that their money or support did something really good. And so that little thank you card down on the bottom of the screen is to remind us that the personal thank yous do mean a lot to people. Every time I get a thank you card, it means so much more to me than a letter that's been typed out that's given to everybody who donates. That doesn't really make me think well of the organization. It's just part of doing business then. And if your members can't say what they've done good to help people, then how would I know that my money is going to be used well and my support's going to be used well? So, just keep practicing that elevator speech, that short speech that tells everybody how really cool your group is. So I think Eric's supposed to continue the next slide, Juliana.
All right.
What did you give contributions?
How states stack up to generosity?
To what?
How states stack up in generosity?
Yeah. Yeah, this is one I'm going to need some assistance on. I'm not real good at this.
Yeah, Eric, when we talked, I actually did a math problem for us to use. Would you like me to use that, talk about that?
Yes.
Okay. So what it's talking about, when this group went around in this article, they went to all of the states. You can actually find it if you want to see how your state did. You can actually find it at the place that I have at the bottom there. And it's an article about all the states and how much they give. And for example, Utah had been number one for giving. They give 10.6%. And that doesn't really mean anything until you put it into dollars, which is if a family makes $30,000 in the household, okay, between you and other people, you have 30,000, for example, that means that family usually gives about $3,018. So when you think about that, that's really important. Remember that individuals give the most. This is kind of the example of how that looks when you talk about money. They have 30,000 in their household, and they still manage to give $3,018 a year, which is pretty awesome. That's a very generous family. And so there's a few more of those. Ed, did you want to tell them a couple more?
Yeah, he said in Mississippi, They give 7.2%, which is pretty good. I'm looking at this. Arkansas, what normally Arkansas and Mississippi usually run first and second every year. But I say y'all, but I say it's not the case here. We have Idaho, Utah, which gets the most, as we see.
Yeah, Arkansas did make the top 10, but we only have the top 5 here.
Right. The top 10. Alabama, Tennessee, and South Carolina. Idaho, Arkansas, number 7. Maryland's 10. So those are states that, so those are states that cares about charitable giving, it looks like.
Correct.
Right. And so with the states like that that cares about charitable giving, it's so important to make your organization known to people because there's some real opportunity in this.
Yeah, so even the states that sometimes are thought to be very poor, they have a lot of giving. People are very generous and have kindness and want to support the nonprofits in their community. So even if you think, well, my state doesn't, it's not a really wealthy state, it's actually surprised me that Mississippi was second in the giving. And so you just never know. All you got to do is try, because trying is what's going to prove it. So we've heard that people never ask me, when they're out in the community, and we say, well, have you heard of our group? And they say, no, nobody's ever asked me for a donation from that group. So never assume that just because you think your community is poor, that people wouldn't be willing to give money or to contribute time and energy to help your group.
Can I throw something in here?
Sure.
Okay. I go to a lot of conferences on philanthropy and stuff. A lot of boards require their board members, keeping donate, which in the self-advocacy feel that might be kind of hard because we self-advocates, we don't have a lot of extra money to give out of our pocket. We can give other ways, but I was at a conference one time, and this gentleman, he said, somebody walked up to me for a contribution, and I asked the person, I said, do you care enough about your organization to contribute yourself? And they said, no, we don't contribute money. We're a board member, we don't contribute money. And that gentleman said, when you share enough to give money out of your own pocket, come back and see me.
Yeah, because if you're asking for people to give and you don't give yourself, most of us have a hard time lying, like, how much did you give last year to the group? And, if you didn't give anything at all, you can say, well, I volunteered, 30 hours a month to the projects that we do because cash is not easy for me to donate, but I also do pay my membership dues. So sometimes we have to remember that volunteerism has value. So if somebody asks, well, how much do you give to your group? I don't know how much to give. Then you can talk about your volunteerism and that you pay your membership dues. Because if you say you don't give, they're probably not going to give to you. It makes it harder for them to say, well, if you don't give, why should I give? And
right.
So we want to be able to talk about how much we volunteer. So help your members figure out how much they actually do volunteer, and that they can talk about their membership dues when somebody's getting ready to write you a check. Make sure that you have a value to your time. You can give dollars or you can give time, and that's what we mostly give when we think about our groups. So help members figure out what the value of that is, so that when you talk to people, they're not caught off guard on what they should say to that question. Because they, just like Eric was talking about, most of the larger organizations, they, collect from their board members, and not just membership dues. They will ask them to support whatever's going on. And so just keep that in mind.
Okay.
Any more
Yeah,
on this?
Juliana?
Is this it for this slide?
No. Yes. Thank you, Eric, for talking about that. Well, before we move into the Resource Center and remind you what our Community United is all about, is there any other questions for our presenters before we move on?
I'm putting everybody on, so if you have any questions. I've unmuted everybody, so if you have a question, please ask.
Okay. So,
If you don't have a question, can you put it on mute?
that's it. You don't have a question, you don't tell me for the rest of your life. It's going to keep you healthy for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that is one of the things that need to be done.
We are picking up other conversations. If you don't have a question, please mute your phone. Juliana's open line. George, are you still there?
Yeah.
I was just wondering, because there's a lot of information that has passed by since the beginning, if you could just tell the content of an elevator speech again.
Wait, can you repeat that?
Can you tell people what to include in their elevator speech?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, like I had mentioned earlier, elevator speeches are pretty short to the point. And so things that you might want to include in there are, who you are, what your mission statement is, what are some of your goals, why do you exist, and if you're asking for support, that's when you say something towards the end of your speech.
Juliana, can you mute everything again?
Yeah, I got it. Took care of it. Vicky had a question. Vicky, if you want to say something, you need to unmute yourself. Okay, go ahead, Vicky. No, you just muted. Do you have a question, Vicky? There you go. You just unmuted yourself again. No question, Vicki?
And
She's probably there, we just can't hear her.
yeah. So anyway, and probably we'll, we maybe ought to bring it up at the next board meeting, so that everybody understands, what goes on. And then we also just really need to actually go to work.
All right, I guess no questions. All right, go on, Teresa.
Do we have less the double speak that was going on now? Because
Yeah.
I could not tell what George was saying. I was wondering if he'd be willing to try one more time.
Yeah, try it again, George. I fixed it. I found the culprit.
Okay. All right. Back to what I was saying about elevator speeches. Remember, the elevator speeches are short and to the point. Stick to the details. Stick to the facts. Things that you want to cover in an elevator speech is, who are you? What do you believe in? What are your goals? What's your mission? You want to talk about why you believe in this. Why is this important? Why should they care? If that makes any sense. And then in the end, you want to close it by saying how they can get involved, or if you're looking for funding, how they can contribute to the cause. So they don't have to be too difficult. It can be something as simple as saying, hi, my name is George Garcia. Did you know that there are over 50 million people with disabilities in the United States, and many of them are unemployed? I represent the Youth Action Council of Arizona. We're a small youth group with youth with disabilities that focuses on transition issues as they affect youth as they transition into adulthood, whether it be in education or employment or health or employment. We currently work with youth here in Maricopa County, and we're expanding throughout Arizona, and we'd really like for you to be part of this. Right now, we're working on our transition conference with the Department of Education, and we'd like your support. And that's as simple as it gets.
If I could add a comment to what George is talking about, sometimes it's hard to talk to somebody right from, not knowing them in an elevator. It does get easier with practice, but there's one thing that I think happens to just about everybody that is out and about. One of the most common things that happens to me is I'll be out shopping or running errands or doing something, and someone will come up to me and say, where did you get that wheelchair? Or where did you get your van with a lift? And that's a perfect opportunity to throw out my elevator speech and draw upon the practice that I've done. Yeah, I'm part of a group, and we help people talk about where they can get accessible equipment, and the place that I get it is. And if you need help, we meet monthly, and we talk about all the different things that people need support on at my People First group. And if you would like to come, we meet on the last Saturday of the month, and you are always welcome to come. We have a lot of fun, but we also talk about the things that you're curious about. And if I don't know the answer, somebody in the room will. And here is my card. Here's my business card, or here's a brochure about our group, and you can give me a call, or I can call you. If you want to give me your information, I can call you back about what you're looking for and give you the numbers and things. Because if I were to just give somebody the number, they're done with me, right? So I want to make sure that I don't let them go so quickly. I want to make sure that there's a reason for us to reconnect, because you never know if that's a parent of someone with a disability or a friend or family. So that also has a very generous heart and would like to say thank you after you help them. So try not to be so quick to get those kinds of things done unless you just don't have time. Try to get their number and continue the conversation. So everything is an opportunity, whether you approach someone or somebody approaches you. It's always a chance that that is going to be the person that is going to break through your next big fundraising barrier, and you just never know. So I just wanted to throw that out there because that happens to me quite often, and I'm sure it happens to you too. So next we're going to talk about our Community United, the Resource Center. Juliana, could you move to the next slide, please?
All right.
Our Community United activities include a national survey, which we're getting ready to send out again. We did the top 10, where the items that we've done the webinars about, but we are doing the top 8, because after that there were so many ideas that scored the same amount. We are going to resurvey again with the national survey with those items that scored very close to each other for the last 2 webinars. And we're also open to receiving any new ideas that you might have or that you might like a webinar about. So there will be 10 of them, but the last 2, you get another chance to choose. Also, this resource center that I'm getting ready to talk about is a place where people are going to be able to go and find user-friendly resources, whether you have a group or a nonprofit. We're hoping that we can have good resources for you to use. Go ahead, Juliana. So SAVE has this commitment that they're going to ask organizations to get the best resources around the country that would help other self-advocacy groups. Go ahead, Juliana.
Yeah, I did. And this is what we're looking for.
Oh, mine froze.
Uh-oh. So we're
can you take over?
Yeah, we're looking for handouts, trainings, PowerPoints, toolkits, samples, any forms, friendly programs, activities for groups or organizations, any favorite websites, any helpful hints on any topics, and marketing items like t-shirts, cups, pins, anything that any group uses that is very successful. Are you still frozen, Teresa?
Yes, I am. Sorry. Continue, please.
All right. And some topic ideas that we're looking for are the purpose, values, and mission statements that you can create, budget forms that are easy for self-advocates to use, again, favorite programs that everybody seems to enjoy, including agenda samples, trying different formats and making it user-friendly, planning and strategizing, understanding nonprofit status, social networking like Facebook, Twitter, any other social locations, maybe yakit.org. Networking with other organizations, managing grant monies, looking at different kinds of monies. If anybody has any successful fundraisers that they would like to share. How about the bylaws, what's a good format for bylaws and that everybody's been using and been successful. Board leadership, event planning, small or large events, and anything else that self-advocates would benefit from. Are you still frozen?
Yeah, it's not moving.
And here's a sample of a document that has been submitted and people looked over. And you can see that a lot of the information is pretty easy to read, understand. Not too much information, but just enough that talks about, for instance, this is the officer and what each one typically does: president, vice president, treasurer, secretary. All right, the next slide is how we evaluate the documents. Teresa, you want to talk about that?
Yes, it finally came back. It likes this one. It is user-friendly. And this is our resource review form. When we get a resource in, we send it out to our national review team, and they score it. And this is the way that the questions that we ask. It uses pictures to explain the topic, uses friendly step-by-step process, uses discussion activity to involve the group, uses words that are easy to understand. It has forms that we can add our group's logo to, or name, or both. And uses a computer program that is easy to work with, provides information that is some of the best I've ever seen about this topic. And they can score, yes, right on, it did that. It does it some, and it doesn't do it at all. So if it's a sum and there's a lot that is really good about it, if the group likes it that much on some pieces but not all, we could potentially go back to the group and say, on question 9 and 10, could your group take a look at this and see if there's a way to make it friendlier? That might be all that it needs to make it into the resource center. And the group can say yes or no, but we want to keep the groups involved. So, and then we will also let the groups know the final groups that make it into the resource center. They'll be contacted too. Right now, we're still receiving information and would like to receive more to review from you, and so that we could put them through the review form. And then you would be contacted, and like I said, you could be one of those that's chosen the best of the best in the U.S. in that topic. So that's quite an honor to be selected by SAVE. So I hope that you'll consider sending in some more documents for us to look at. And that resource center will be located on the SaveUSA.org website. It is not up yet because we're still reviewing, but we just wanted you to know that it will be coming, and we look forward to having everyone come on the site and check out what we have once we get everything working correctly. It needs to be friendly or we're not going to do it. So our community proposed webinar schedule, our Community United proposed webinar schedule is the last slide that we have. The next one that is coming up is on September the 9th, and it's called Creating Strategic Plan or Business Plan. And you can use either one of those words, because strategic can be kind of tricky to say, but that is what they are called by all those fancy businesses out there that have them. So we want to be able to have one of those put together for you and have you know exactly what it means, the different parts of it, and we look forward to having everyone join us again. I'm going to throw this back to Juliana for any last potential questions.
All right, if anybody has any questions, please ask. I shall unmute everybody.
Unmuted.
If you have any comments, I'll go ahead and wait for you to mute it back.
All right, go ahead. Anybody?
If you have any questions about the webinar today, please contact SAVE on their webpage, or you can contact Juliana or myself. My email is, and again, this is Teresa Moore. My email is mooreadvocacy, just the way it sounds, M-O-O-R-E, advocacy, A-D-V-O-C-A-C-Y, at hotmail.com, and we'd be happy to answer any of your questions in case you're a little webinar shy about, because it's not always a perfect sounding to ask your question there. I'd be happy to talk with you, and I appreciate everyone that has written in questions. They do get used to improve our webinars, so I appreciate that very much. Send just one more opportunity for questions. Do you have any, Juliana?
I don't have any questions.
I believe that this is the last slide, correct?
Yes.
Okay. There is the schedule. Periodically, they do change every once in a while. So do check with the SAVE webpage. I believe that it is up there also. Oops, and I see a little typo, which means that, hey, we're all slightly imperfect, but that's okay. But we will be here the next time, September the 9th, to talk about strategic planning or business plans. And we hope that you will come and join us again and have lots and lots of questions for us. I'd like to thank all of our presenters today and Juliana for helping us today. Thank you all for attending. It does mean a lot to us to have you on, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and thank you from SAVE. Have a good afternoon.